For 10 years, my sister smiled in my face, slept on my couch, and hugged my husband like he was family. Turns out, he was in ways I never imagined. While I cooked dinners and trusted blindly, they were building a world behind my back. On our 15th wedding anniversary, I found out their little secret, but the real betrayal. She painted me as the villain, and that was the day I stopped being the nice one. If you've ever trusted someone who stabbed you in the back with a smile, this story is for you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true tales of karma, betrayal, and unexpected revenge. My name is Jessica. I'm 42 years old, and I live in a quiet little town in Oregon, where I run a small but successful interior design business. It's the kind of place where people greet each other at the grocery store, and your neighbors know what you had for dinner before you even finish cooking it. I used to think that was comforting, safe even. But now, I realize how easy it is to hide the worst kinds of secrets in plain sight. For most of my life, I tried to be the responsible one, the steady one. I built my career from the ground up. I worked late nights sketching floor plans, chasing clients, and pulling together sample boards while juggling bills and building a marriage I thought was solid. My husband Tom and I had been married for 15 years. We had our ups and downs, sure, but he was my best friend. Or, at least I thought he was. And then there's Rachel, my older half-sister. We share the same mother, but we couldn't be more different. Where I'm careful and calculated, Rachel is impulsive and dramatic. She floats through life like she's always starring in her own soap opera. Every time she stumbled, I was the one who picked her back up. When she needed rent money, I sent it. When she had a bad breakup, she crashed on my couch. When she got laid off again, I helped her find work. She never stayed in one place for too long. But I always made space for her in mine. Tom used to joke that Rachel was like a stray cat I kept feeding. One of these days, she's going to move in for good, he'd say with a grin. I'd laugh it off, telling him that family is family even when they're messy, especially when they're messy. What I didn't realize back then was that messy can turn into malicious. Rachel started spending more time at our house a few years ago. At first, it was little things stopping by for dinner, helping me reorganize the guest room staying the weekend because she needed to get away from the city. Then it turned into week-long visits, then months. Before I knew it, she had a drawer in our bathroom and knew exactly where we kept the wine glasses. She said she loved helping me out around the house and keeping Tom company when I was too busy with work. It didn't feel weird. Not at first. I mean, what kind of woman suspects her own sister Rachel had a way of making everyone like her? She was charming, flirty, always telling these exaggerated stories that made people laugh, even Tom. Especially Tom. He'd tell me, "You're so lucky to have a sister like her. She's fun." And I believed it. I wanted to believe it. I'd worked so hard to build this little world of mine, career, home, love, family. I thought I was surrounded by people who wanted to see me happy. I thought I was loved, not just used. The truth was hiding in all the quiet moments, the way Rachel looked at Tom when she thought I wasn't watching, the way she always insisted on washing dishes with him while I cleaned up elsewhere, the long, drawn-out hugs that lingered just a little too long. I noticed these things, but I kept pushing those feelings down, convincing myself I was being paranoid, jealous, overworked. Because the alternative, the idea that my sister, my own sister, might be capable of something darker, that was just too painful to even imagine. So I kept letting her in. again and again. And each time she smiled and said thank you. And I, like a fool, kept saying, "What are sisters for?" It started with little things, barely noticeable moments that whispered instead of screamed. One evening, I came home early from a client meeting. I wasn't supposed to be back until dinner, but my appointment got rescheduled last minute. When I walked in, the house was quiet, except for laughter floating in from the living room. Tom and Rachel were sitting on the couch, close, too close. She was laughing at something he said, one of her legs tucked underneath her hand, resting lightly on his forearm. The kind of touch that lingers. They didn't hear me come in right away. And when they did, they jumped just a second too late to feel normal. "Oh, Jess, you're back early," Tom said, his voice a little too bright. Rachel smiled like nothing happened. "We were just watching that home renovation show you like. You know, for inspiration." I nodded, my stomach curling in a way I couldn't explain. I told myself I was imagining it. I'd had a long day. I was tired, overthinking. But the feeling didn't go away. It grew. From that moment on, I started noticing more. Tom, who used to text me sweet little check-ins during the day, suddenly stopped. Rachel, who never cared much about our kitchen, began organizing it like she lived there. She had preferences, where the mugs went, how the spices were labeled. She called my husband Tommy, in this sing-song voice that grated on my nerves. One afternoon, I overheard her humming while folding laundry in our bedroom. Our bedroom. My clothes were mixed with hers, and she folded Tom's shirts like she'd been doing it for years. "Rachel," I said, forcing calm into my voice, "you don't have to do that." She turned surprised. "Oh, I don't mind. It's the least I can do after staying here so long. Besides, you're always so busy." That last part stung, "you're always so busy." Like I was the one neglecting my home, my husband, my life. I started to set boundaries, told her I needed more space, that she should maybe think about getting her own place again. She pouted, of course, made a dramatic show of how unwanted she suddenly felt. Tom defended her. "Jess, come on. She's family. She's just going through a rough patch that had apparently lasted 6 months. Still, I tried to be patient. I didn't want to be the crazy, jealous wife. I didn't want to accuse my sister of something I couldn't prove. But the more I ignored it, the worse it got. One night, I found Rachel's lipstick in Tom's car, a shade of deep berry I'd never wear. When I asked him about it, he shrugged and said maybe it was mine from a while ago. But I knew my lipstick, and I knew when someone was lying. Then came the texts. I was working late finishing a client proposal when Tom's phone lit up beside me on the kitchen counter. "Rachel, thanks again for today. I needed that. I don't know what I'd do without you." I stared at it frozen. When I confronted him, he swore it was harmless. She was just upset. We went for a drive, talked. That's all. I wanted to believe him. I desperately wanted to believe him. But my trust, once so solid, was beginning to crack. I talked to my best friend Mara. She's known me since college, seen me through every phase of life. When I told her everything, she didn't hesitate. "Jessica, I love you, but you're being gaslit," she said. "No sister should be that close to your husband, and no husband should let her be." Even with her words echoing in my ears, I couldn't bring myself to confront them fully. I still needed more. Proof. A confession. Something. I began watching them more carefully. Rachel's subtle touches, the way Tom would light up when she entered the room, how their conversations continued long after I left the table. The final straw came when I caught Rachel wearing one of my robes. My favorite silk one, gifted by Tom on our 10th anniversary. She twirled in it like it belonged to her. "This old thing," she laughed when I stared. "I just grabbed it from the laundry. Hope you don't mind." I didn't say a word, but in that moment I knew. Something was happening right in front of me, and they were both pretending like I was too blind or too stupid to notice. But they were wrong, very wrong, because the woman they thought they were deceiving was finally done playing nice. Our 15th wedding anniversary was supposed to be a celebration of everything Tom and I had built together. Our love, our life, our resilience. I'd spent weeks planning a small gathering at our home, just close friends and family. I even picked out a new dress, hoping, maybe just maybe, the sparkle in Tom's eyes would come back when he saw me walk down the stairs. But what I didn't know was that the celebration wasn't for us, it was for them. Rachel helped set everything up. She was unusually giddy that day, flitting around the kitchen like a bride on her wedding morning. She wore a white satin dress, white of all colors, tight in all the right places, her hair curled in soft waves, her perfume far too strong. People noticed. I saw their eyes darting between her and Tom, whispering things I couldn't quite catch. I kept telling myself to breathe, to smile, to play the gracious host. Tom barely looked at me the entire night, and when he did, it was through Rachel, like she was the center of gravity now, and I was just background noise in my own home. The final blow came after most of the guests had left. I was in the kitchen, rinsing glasses, trying not to cry. That's when I heard them, Rachel and Tom, laughing in the hallway just beyond the swinging door. Their voices were low, intimate. I shouldn't have listened, but I did. Tom whispered something, and Rachel giggled. Then she said, "You're lucky I kept quiet tonight. One wrong move and everyone would know." Tom replied, "Let's just wait a little longer. She'll figure it out eventually." That's when the glass in my hand slipped and shattered in the sink. The sound was loud enough to make them both freeze. I walked out slowly, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. They stared at me like I was the intruder. Rachel blinked first. "Jess? Oh my God. Are you okay?" I looked at Tom. "How long?" His face twisted somewhere between shame and arrogance. "It's not what you think," I laughed. A cold, brittle sound. "Then tell me what it is, Tom. I'd love to hear the edited version you two rehearsed." Rachel reached out. "It just happened, Jess. We didn't plan this. We were hurting, and you were hurting," I snapped. "You were hurting." For a second, I thought I might throw something. Instead, I stepped back. "So the woman I trusted most, who I let into my home, into my marriage, you decided that was your chance." Rachel's eyes filled with crocodile tears. "I didn't mean to fall for him." Tom said nothing. He just stood there, cowardly and small, like a man who had finally been unmasked. The days that followed were a blur of humiliation. They didn't even have the decency to keep it quiet. Word spread fast. Somehow, Rachel had already started sharing her version of events online, painting herself as the victim. The narrative was twisted, how she had been emotionally neglected for years. How I had pushed her into Tom's arms by being cold and controlling. "She's not the woman you think she is," one of Rachel's posts read. Behind closed doors, Jessica always made me feel small. I never wanted to hurt her. I just wanted to be loved, and people believed her. Comments poured in. You're so brave for speaking out. She sounds toxic. No wonder he left. Blood doesn't make you, family love does. My inbox exploded with hate messages. Clients started backing out of contracts. My reputation as a professional, as a person began to crumble. Even longtime friends grew distant. No one wanted to pick sides, and silence always favors the louder voice. Rachel's voice. And somehow, she had managed to be louder, even while standing on the ruins of my life. I fell into a dark place. There were mornings I didn't get out of bed. I'd stare at the ceiling and ask myself, how did I not see this coming? How did I become the woman who lost everything? Her husband, her business, her dignity to someone who called her sister Tom never officially moved out. He just started staying at a friend's place more often. The truth was, he didn't have to choose because Rachel had already made me the villain in their twisted little love story. But what they didn't realize was this: you can push a good woman down. You can even break her. But if she gets back up, she'll never be the same woman again. I used to think the worst thing someone could do to you was lie. But no, the worst is when they lie so well that even you start to question your own truth. After Rachel's post went viral, I tried to tell my side of the story. I wrote something simple measured from the heart, but it got buried in the noise. Her narrative was more dramatic, more digestible. People love a messy heroine with a sob story, especially when the villain is a perfect wife who supposedly ignored her man and belittled her sister. I could feel myself disappearing from my own life. My phone rarely rang, invitations dried up. Even the local women's networking group I helped sent me a polite email about taking a step back during this sensitive time. Sensitive, I was being erased. The cruelest part, Rachel didn't stop. She leaned into her performance. She posted pictures of her and Tom smiling at some weekend farmer's market wearing matching flannel shirts. My flannel shirts. She even wore my scarf in one photo, the same one I had on in our last Christmas card together. In one video, she held Tom's hand and said, "Sometimes love shows up in the most unexpected ways. We didn't plan this. We just couldn't deny it anymore." The comments made me sick. You deserve to be happy, Rachel. She clearly didn't appreciate him. So glad you finally found real love. Real love. They called it real love, and I was just collateral damage. I started deleting photos. First from our wedding, then vacations, birthdays, even simple selfies with Tom. I thought if I erased them from my camera roll, maybe I could start erasing them from my mind. But grief doesn't work that way. Grief is messy. It shows up when you're buying toothpaste, when you hear a song on the radio, when someone compliments the design of your living room, something you created together, and you suddenly remember he used to say, "No one makes a space feel like home the way you do." And then there were the nights. Oh, the nights. I'd wake up gasping from dreams where I screamed at Rachel, pulled her out of my house by the hair, only to open my eyes and find nothing but silence. No Tom, no warmth beside me, just cold sheets and the echo of a home that had become haunted. Mara, my best friend, tried to pull me out of it. She came over one evening with Thai food and a bottle of wine. "Jess," she said gently, "you can't let them win by disappearing. That's what they want." I stared into my glass. I don't even know who I am anymore. She reached across the table. You're Jessica Lane. You survived a mother who abandoned you, built a design empire from scratch, and gave your heart fully to a man who didn't deserve it. That's who you are. Her words landed like bricks on my chest. She was right. I had given too much for too long, always being the peacemaker, the provider, the good sister. And where had it gotten me? Discarded, disrespected, destroyed. Rachel even had the audacity to reach out once. She sent a voice message at 2 a.m. Jess, I don't know what to say. I never wanted things to happen like this. I didn't plan to fall for Tom, but I can't apologize for love. Maybe one day you'll understand. I deleted the message halfway through. There's a difference between being sorry and being sorry you got caught. And she wasn't sorry at all. In the pit of that pain, something strange started to form clarity. Not all at once, but slowly, like dawn after a long storm. I began to see that their betrayal wasn't about me. It was about their emptiness, their hunger to feel important, seen, chosen. They weren't in love, they were in need, and I still had something they didn't: integrity. Even in the midst of their lies, I hadn't sunk to their level. I hadn't lashed out or tried to destroy them with words. I had chosen silence. But silence doesn't mean weakness. It means patience. And patience, when paired with purpose, can become power. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, looked myself dead in the eyes, and whispered, "You are not broken. You are not invisible. You are still here." The woman who once crumbled in the kitchen was about to rise again. But this time, not to beg for love, not to fix a man, and definitely not to protect someone who wore the title sister like a mask. No, this time, I was rising for me. They thought they broke me, but they didn't know that a woman who's been shattered doesn't come back the same. She comes back sharper, stronger, unforgiving. I didn't scream. I didn't post anything. I didn't even respond to Rachel's late-night apology, because revenge isn't loud, it's precise. I started with silence. Disappearing from the online chaos gave me breathing room. No more explanations. No more defending myself to people who already chose sides. I logged off, deleted the apps, and turned inward. I poured myself into design. I revamped my entire portfolio, curated new digital collections, and quietly reached out. I had luxury real estate developers in Portland and Seattle. It took only 3 weeks before one of them invited me to collaborate on a high-end eco-living project. That one project led to another, and suddenly I was flying to meetings again, booking press interviews and signing contracts under my rebranded name, Jessica Lane Studio. No more shared names, no more shared lives. While they flaunted their stolen love, I was building something real, without filters, without lies. And then came the moment I had been waiting for. One night, while reviewing specs on a new client's project, I saw a familiar name on the contractor proposal: Tom Peterson, my ex-husband. Apparently, his construction company had been trying to break into sustainable design, and he was hoping to impress one of my clients. The irony made me smile. I asked my assistant to discreetly check who he'd partnered with. Turns out he was chasing a massive deal with a European architecture firm with investors who had very strict codes of ethics around workplace conduct and personal scandals. Perfect. So I waited. A few days later, I composed an anonymous email. Attached were photos, screenshots, and private texts, every piece of evidence showing Tom and Rachel's affair, while he was still legally married, including timestamps, Rachel's online posts, and the viral video they had once gloated over. I didn't include my name. I didn't need to. The truth was loud enough. 1 week later, I got word that the firm had pulled out of negotiations with Tom's company. Word spread quickly in the contractor community. His name, which once meant reliable and honest, became radioactive. Clients vanished. His second-in-command quit. Rumors flew. Tom tried to save face with a statement about focusing on personal growth. Translation: his career was in flames. And Rachel. Her karma arrived in even better fashion. Months before, during one of her many oversharing rants online, she had mocked a young influencer for faking a breakup for clicks. Rachel said she despised liars who weaponized pain for attention. The hypocrisy didn't go unnoticed. A few sleuthy netizens found Rachel's own lies. They uncovered an old live stream, one she forgot to delete, where she admitted knowing Tom was married and laughed about stealing a man who's bored with his trophy wife. It went viral again. Only this time, the audience wasn't cheering. They were furious. She lost followers, brand deals, and speaking invites. One women's wellness retreat actually posted a public statement canceling her scheduled appearance, saying, "We don't platform bullies who glamorize betrayal." She posted a tearful apology, but no one cared. She had spun the story for too long, and the audience she once manipulated had finally seen the strings. And me, I kept building. Jessica Lane's studio was now featured in 2 national design magazines. I hosted a segment on HGTV about healing through home spaces. My story, what little I allowed to be shared, was positioned as a message of resilience. People didn't need the full betrayal to understand the strength it took to rise. But not everything I did was professional. Some things were personal. I mailed Rachel a small box. No note, no message. Inside, just one item, a copy of the key to my old front door, broken in half. A quiet message. You no longer belong here. You never did. I heard she cried. I didn't care. Let her cry. She'd taken a home I built and turned it into a playground for betrayal. She'd worn my clothes, slept in my bed, and then painted herself as the victim. But not anymore. Because now, people saw her for who she really was, and me. They saw me too, not as the scorned wife or the abandoned sister, but as the woman who refused to let their darkness dim her light. Jessica's revenge wasn't about destruction, it was about restoration. She didn't burn their lives down, she simply lit the truth and let the flames do the rest. A year passed. The house where it all fell apart had been sold. I no longer lived with shadows on my walls. My new place overlooked the river, filled with light and silence. No ghosts, no memories, just me. Every morning I brewed coffee and stood by the window, wrapped in a robe I bought just for myself, not because anyone would see me in it, but because I liked how it felt. I had found peace, not the kind that comes quickly. No. Mine came slowly stitched together by work tears and deep breaths. By learning to live without needing apologies I would never receive. By forgiving myself for trusting too long And then one rainy afternoon, Rachel showed up. I didn't know how she found my new address. Maybe someone slipped. Maybe she followed the trail of my success. But there she was, standing at my doorstep, soaked and shaking. Her makeup was smudged. Her hands were empty. I lost everything, she whispered. I wanted to say, I'm sorry. Maybe we could start over, as sisters. I looked at her for a long time, not with anger, not even pity, just clarity. I stepped outside, standing under the awning between us. You once stepped into my home, I said softly, and called it yours. Now, you'll have to learn how to build your own. She didn't speak again. And as she turned and walked away, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free, because the real victory wasn't revenge. It was becoming a woman who no longer needed anyone to lose, for her to finally win. And in that quiet space where betrayal used to echo, there was only peace. Sometimes the deepest healing doesn't come from revenge, but from choosing yourself over and over again.